Who are some surprising players that are seeing their value skyrocket as we head into week 16? I'm going to tell you. Hey, welcome back Endgame community. It's Chris, and these are some players whose value is absolutely skyrocketing right now that you need to be paying close attention to heading into your playoff semifinals. Let's talk about them. And let's start with one of my favorite players. Has been one of my favorite players ever since he entered the league, and that is Jerick McKinnon. This guy is an athletic freak, had one of the best spark scores in the history of the NFL Combine. Just an absolute freak of nature athletically, but never really could latch on, as a starting running back. Almost had a chance with San Francisco a few years ago, then unfortunate ACL injury. But he's always been one of those guys when given the opportunity, he's made the most of it, and we're seeing that again right now. After week 14, I was a little skeptical because, okay, he had this random 9-target game, scored a couple touchdowns, but, it wasn't like he got crazy volume. But week 15, after what happened, we cannot ignore Jerick McKinnon anymore. Over the last 2 weeks, he also has 15 catches, 182 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And the encouraging thing in week 15, if you have Jerick McKinnon, is he got all 4 of the goal line touches. That's right, Jerick McKinnon, not Isaiah Pacheco, got all of the goal line touches. So at this point, if you've got McKinnon, just keep riding this wave. We've seen it in stints. We saw it at the end of the season last year in the playoffs. The Chiefs trust him. They know what he can do. His usage is only going to go up. He's got week winning upside. Keep him locked in from now till your fantasy season is over, which will hopefully be in the championship. Now from a vet to a rookie, we got to talk about Tyler Algier. That post-bye rookie bump is real, and we saw it in week 15 with Tyler Algier. Don't forget, the Falcons had that really late week 14 bye. But coming out of the bye, we knew they were already going to go to the rookie quarterback, Desmond Ridder. But they also decided to feature rookie running back Tyler Algier for the first time all year. 17 carries. Now, of course, Patterson was involved, but Patterson did have fewer carries than Algier in this game. And Algier looked absolutely great, against a pretty good Saints run defense. You got to think we're going to continue to see this from Algier. This is a team with their eyes on the future. They don't need to know what they have with Patterson or any of these vets. They need to know if the rookies like Desmond Ridder and Tyler Algier can be the guy or not. So Tyler Algier, if he's out there still on your waiver wire, definitely have to go get him. He does have a tough matchup this week against Baltimore. That could be tricky, but still, with this kind of usage, on a team that just really wants to run the ball, that has one of the best offensive lines in football, finding a running back like Algier is so rare. Go out, get him if you can, and keep on riding him. I was not very high on James Conner throughout the entire draft process, throughout the entire season, but it looks like finally, things are coming around for James Conner. Things finally broke right. Darrell Williams out for the season. Eno Benjamin, a cut. There's no one really behind him. And if you somehow have made the playoffs with James Conner, you got to be feeling great right now because he is getting elite usage. 90% snap shares, 15 plus carries, getting targets, getting dump offs, and he scored 18 or more PPR points in 3 straight games, really helping teams right now who, again, somehow made the playoffs with him. If that's you, you should be feeling great about James Conner. Not a lot of running backs out there getting the usage like James Conner is, so if you've got him, keep riding him. He should help you for the rest of the season. And then finally, I got to come around on J.K. Dobbins. I know what he did a couple weeks ago. It was nice. Had that great matchup against Cleveland, but I was a little worried coming off that game. Like, would he sustain this usage? Would his knee be okay? But look, he looked good. I mean, it's obvious he's not even close to 100%. If he was 100% right now, he would absolutely be winning leagues. But he's still good enough, and the matchup again this week is good enough that he will be startable. He gets Atlanta this week. That should not worry you one bit. The thing I am encouraged by J.K. Dobbins is his ability to cut and his vision. He's not hesitating. He doesn't look hesitant. No, he doesn't have that breakaway home run speed. We saw it on that long run against Cleveland. Should have had a touchdown, a really long touchdown. Instead, it was just like a 40-yard gain. But look, you're not going to get that Dobbins this year, but you're going to get a good enough Dobbins, especially here in Week 17 against Atlanta. An RB2 with touchdown upside. So another guy, like with the way the running back landscape is, you got J.K. Dobbins, you're feeling pretty good right about now. All right, let's move on to wide receiver, and we got to start with Zay Jones. Dude is absolutely balling out right now. 14 or more PPR points in 4 of his last 5 games, 20 or more in 3 of those games, not to mention basically a 35-point game here in Week 15 against Dallas. And look, this entire passing game is balling out right now, right? Trevor Lawrence looks great. The offense looks great. Zay Jones getting targets, getting usage. No, he's not going to do this every single week. We've seen it this season. You know, he has some ups, he has some downs. But he's looking like a guy you could throw in as an every week wide receiver 3 with huge week winning upside. And this time of year, you will take that. And then a rookie wide receiver really coming on late here is Jahan Dotson. Now, we saw flashes early in the season. Then he battled injury and then kind of didn't do anything. But the last 2 games have been really encouraging. He has 36 PPR points over the last 2 games. Plus, he has 15 targets in those 2 games. So he's getting that kind of usage that makes him fantasy relevant. And he looks like he's clearly the number 2 preferred target behind Terry McLaurin for Taylor Heineke. And this offense, no, it's not an elite offense. He's not going to go off every single week. But we know this guy's potential. He's a touchdown magnet. He just seems to have a nose for the end zone. He's a talented player. And these rookies, we see it a lot. It takes some time. They come on late. So he could be another rookie. Comes on late, right when you need him most in the fantasy playoffs. Maybe not a guy you have to roll out this week, but definitely somebody you want to stash. And if you're desperate, definitely look at Dotson. You could do much worse. And then do we have to start actually considering Deontay Johnson for our fantasy lineup? He's got 34 fantasy points over the last 2 games. He's got 18 targets in that span, 16 catches in that span. And that was with 1 game with Kenny Pickett and 1 game with Mitch Trubisky. So it doesn't even matter who the quarterback is. Now the downside for Deontay Johnson is he has not scored a touchdown all year. That's crazy. He has not scored a touchdown on the entire season. And maybe he won't because of this offense. It just can't really support, a lot of touchdowns in this offense. But still, in a PPR league, anybody giving you this kind of usage and this kind of floor with, a decent ceiling, he got you 20 points in Week 15, is obviously worth a look. And then he gets 2 great matchups to finish the season. The Raiders here in Week 16, we know that is absolutely a secondary you can exploit. And then Baltimore in Week 17, who's been banged up all year. Marcus Peters now injured once again, down a bunch of corners in that secondary. Another matchup he can definitely exploit. So, Deontay Johnson's still out there on a lot of waiver wires. He was dropped because he wasn't really doing anything. If he is, go scoop him up. I don't think he's a bad option for the next 2 weeks. And then it looks like Juju Smith-Schuster is finally fully back from that concussion he suffered a few weeks ago. Has 39 PPR points over the last 2 weeks. Looks like he is back to being Patrick Mahomes' number 2 option, number 1 wide receiver option, but number 2 option behind Travis Kelce. Maybe like the 1B to Kelce's 1A, but whatever. In this offense, any receiver, any player really getting the kind of target share and volume that Juju is must be taken very seriously. We saw it earlier in the year before he had that concussion. He was coming on. Him and Mahomes were starting to get that chemistry. He strung together like 3 or 4 really good games. I think he's back to that point now. For me, Juju Smith-Schuster in every week, wide receiver 2 with massive upside in this offense. If you got him, lock him in and keep him locked in. And then finally got to finish with Donovan Peoples-Jones. It looks like the connection between him and Deshaun Watson is better than the connection between Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper. Peoples-Jones has outscored Cooper in every game that Deshaun Watson has played. Now, no, he's not necessarily out-targeting him, although he did last week for sure. But this week in Week 15, had 1 less target, but still, the connection is there. And he seems to be getting the looks when they get near the goal line. So, Donovan Peoples-Jones, another guy people probably snatched up off of waivers a few weeks ago. No, doesn't have a ton of upside in this offense because, I don't know, this offense, even with Deshaun Watson, is still broken. It's not an offense that's going to be incredibly fantasy friendly. It actually somehow looks worse with Deshaun Watson than it did with Jacoby Brissett. But still, Peoples-Jones looks like an every week flex with upside. If you got him, you're feeling good. And then let's move on to tight end. And is Evan Engram becoming an every week must start? He has 14 or more PPR points in 3 straight games. He has at least 7 targets in all of those games. And he has double-digit targets in each of the last 2 games. And I talked about it with Zay Jones. This passing attack is on fire right now. It looks like Trevor Lawrence has made the leap. The coaching is there, everything is there, and Evan Ingram is a huge part of that. There's not a lot of tight ends. In fact, there's very few tight ends, maybe Travis Kelce, and that is it, that you can count on to get this kind of usage that Evan Ingram is getting. So if you grabbed him off a waiver wire a few weeks ago, I say just keep rolling with Evan Ingram. Ignore the matchup. He just succeeded in a tough matchup against Dallas. Ignore the matchup, ignore everything, keep him locked in and playing. If you're looking for some tight ends you could potentially grab off the waiver wire and play, how about Juwan Johnson? Has double-digit PPR points in his last 4 games, has 7 touchdowns in his last 7 games, and it looks like, with Andy Dalton, he's going to get enough of a target share to be fantasy relevant, because let's be real, any tight end getting decent usage with a chance to score is fantasy relevant. But this guy has been really good the last 4 games. Finding a tight end who has double-digit PPR points in 4 of the last 4 games is pretty much impossible. I don't. Maybe Travis Kelce, and that is it. So Juwan Johnson has to be taken seriously. Came back from injury in Week 15, looked great, caught 2 touchdowns. Got 4 targets. Again, we're talking about tight ends here. You can't look for a guy getting 8, 9, 10 targets. They're just not out there anymore. Juwan Johnson has touchdown upside, and we've seen it. He makes for a great streaming option in Week 16 and really a great streaming option rest of the season. Now, if you want to go a little deeper, how about Dawson Knox? He's scored each of the last 2 games. Remember, last year, this guy was a scoring machine, and we just haven't seen it this year. But a touchdown in each of the last 2 games. Josh Allen looked the best he's looked since he suffered that elbow injury, on Saturday night against Miami, throwing 4 touchdowns. Knox is a guy we know can score on any given week. And again, when you're looking for tight ends, that's really the most you can ask for. Like, there's only one Travis Kelce out there. Every other tight end, if they have chances to score and they're going to get some involvement in the passing game, that is a win. So in your deeper leagues, or if Juwan Johnson is gone, take a look at Dawson Knox. He's been on fire the last 2 games. No reason that can't continue for the next 2. And then let's finish with quarterback, and we got to talk about Kirk Cousins. After literally went into halftime on Saturday with negative fantasy points and then went over 30 points for the game. Back-to-back games with over 400 passing yards. That's crazy. And the good thing here is this defense is not any good. They can't really stop teams. So the Vikings are forced to continually throw, continually keep the pedal down, continually keep trying to score. And now he gets a home game against the Giants, which should not scare you at all. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got KJ Osborne. He's even got Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. He's got weapons. He's got TJ Hawkinson playing great right now. If you lost Kyler Murray, or maybe you might lose Jalen Hurts this week, we don't know, and you need a quarterback, Kirk Cousins, a great streaming option, a guy you can just ride this week and next week, and, he should continue to just put up huge fantasy numbers. And then finally, I talked about Zay Jones, I talked about Evan Ingram, so of course we got to talk about Trevor Lawrence, who has been on fire lately. It's obvious Urban Meyer wrecked Trevor Lawrence last year. Now he has a real head coach, Doug Peterson. He's getting the most out of him. He has 16 or more fantasy points in your standard 4-point touchdown leagues in every one of his last 6 games, and he's gone over 20 in 4 of those games. And look, I was a little nervous about him against Dallas. I know Dallas defense hasn't been great, but still a little nervous about him. Struggled in that first half, but turned it on in the second half. He does get a tough matchup this week on the road against the Jets, but you know what? I don't care. He's playing so well. This offense is playing so well. Doug Peterson coaching the heck out of this group. I think, again, if you're looking for a QB streamer this week because you lost, maybe Jalen Hurts, or you lost Kyler Murray, or you picked up Deshaun Watson and thought he would be the answer and he's not, look at Trevor Lawrence. I don't care about the matchup. I'm starting him if I need to. He's just playing too well right now to ignore. Now that you know some players whose value is skyrocketing right now, what about who to start, who to sit, who could boom? Maybe some hidden heroes like Jerick McKinnon last week who could help your team win that nobody else is thinking about. Check out our Week 16 playlist right here. Everything you need to help you win that semifinal matchup.